Investigators tell 48 Hours they have a person of interest in the mysterious death of one of Hollywood's most alluring actresses. Natalie Wood allegedly drowned in 1981, and her death was originally ruled an accident.
I remember people coming on the boat saying that they had found Natalie Wood floating. I just couldn't believe it.
Nearly 4 decades after the mysterious death of Natalie Wood, investigators are asking the public for help to determine what really happened the night the actress drowned.
For over 4 decades, the tragic death of Hollywood star Natalie Wood has remained one of the most haunting unsolved mysteries in celebrity history.
I believe that Robert Wagner was with her up until the moment she went into the water.
A glamorous night on a yacht, a chilling disappearance, and more questions than answers. Until now. New evidence has surfaced, and it's painting a much darker picture than anyone imagined. The long-held silence is cracking, and what's emerging is unsettling. So, was it truly an accident, or something far more sinister?
The mysterious death of actress Natalie Wood, wife of actor Robert Wagner, is back in the news.
The mystery is finally unraveling, and the truth is more disturbing than we ever expected. Secrets beneath the surface. What was meant to be a peaceful weekend at sea turned into one of Hollywood's darkest and most enduring mysteries. On November 28, 1981, beloved actress Natalie Wood set sail with her husband Robert Wagner aboard the Splendor, joined by her co-star Christopher Walken and the yacht's captain, Dennis Davern. The destination was Santa Catalina Island, but the trip would end in tragedy. By sunrise, Natalie's body was found floating in the water not far from a beached dinghy. She was just 43. The official story claimed it was an accident, but behind the calm surface was a night filled with tension, alcohol, and unanswered questions. What really happened aboard that yacht? Why was there a delay in calling for help? And what about the bruises? Some of them fresh, discovered on her body. These are details we'll dive deeper into later. But for now, just know this. The story the world was given didn't sit right with everyone. Authorities ruled her death as accidental drowning and hypothermia, but even that conclusion was met with skepticism. Her sister, Lana, publicly questioned the idea that Natalie, who had a lifelong fear of water, would willingly step into a dinghy alone.
Stand up and tell me the truth. I know things go bad. I know people lose their tempers. I know bad things happen when you don't want them to. So stand up and tell me that. Tell me what happened to her.
Then there were the disturbing whispers of what 2 witnesses on a nearby boat claimed they heard that night. Screams that echoed in the dark, pleading for help. But even more shocking were the claims that came years later. Claims that would shatter the official narrative and reignite public suspicion. Decades after Natalie's death, one of the men on that yacht came forward with a very different version of events. One filled with anger, jealousy, and chilling inaction. And once he broke his silence, the investigation took a sharp turn. What he revealed forced authorities to reopen the case and eventually name someone very close to Natalie as a person of interest. That detail, and the reason behind it, will change the way you look at this case entirely. But we'll get to that soon enough. Before we piece together what really happened on that yacht and why the truth was hidden for so long, let's take a step back and explore the extraordinary journey, struggles, and rise of Natalie Wood, the woman behind the mystery.
I think that's what the picture in a way is about, communication, you know, and being open and not keeping things to yourself. And a lot of life is chance.
A star was molded, not just born. Before that haunting night off Catalina Island, Natalie Wood was just a little girl with a dream shaped not entirely by her own. Born Natalia Nikolaevna Zakharenko on July 20, 1938. In San Francisco, to Russian immigrant parents, she entered the world during uncertain times. Her mother Maria believed fiercely in fate, in omens, and most of all, in Natalie's destiny. The family struggled financially, bouncing between cities in search of opportunity. But it was Maria's obsession with stardom that pushed them forward, even when it meant leaving everything behind. Natalie's path to the spotlight began when she was barely 4 years old. While living in Santa Rosa, a film crew happened to be working nearby. Curious and adorable, Natalie caught the attention of the crew, and with barely a word, she landed a blink and "You All Miss It" role in Happy Land. That short screen time, just 15 seconds, was enough to open a door. Director Irving Pichel saw something rare in her and kept tabs on the family. When a role finally came that he believed was right, he reached out. Without hesitation, Maria packed up their life and moved the family to Los Angeles, dragging a reluctant husband behind her. Natalie's breakthrough came at the age of 7, playing a war orphan in Tomorrow Is Forever in 1946 alongside Orson Welles. But behind the scenes, the performance came at a chilling cost. In one emotional scene, young Natalie struggled to cry on cue. In a moment that left scars, Maria ripped apart a butterfly in front of her daughter's eyes to force a reaction. The tears flowed, real ones, and so did the critical praise. Orson Welles later remarked that Natalie didn't just act, she became the role, something he found both haunting and impressive in a child so young. From there, her momentum grew. She continued working under Pichel's guidance, appearing in The Bride Wore Boots, and soon caught the attention of 20th Century Fox. In 1947, she starred in The Ghost and Mrs. Muir as Jean Tierney's daughter, proving she had more than just a pretty face. She had presence. But it was Miracle on 34th Street later that year that made her unforgettable. As the little girl who questioned Santa Claus, Natalie didn't just charm America, she became one of its most cherished child stars. The heavy crown of early stardom. Her turn in Miracle on 34th Street may have made Natalie Wood a household name, but behind that charming on-screen smile was a young girl juggling more than most could imagine. Fame was thrilling, but it came at a steep price. California law required her to spend at least 3 hours a day in school while filming, which meant much of Natalie's learning happened not in classrooms, but on bustling sets between takes. She was a disciplined student who earned straight A's with a special gift for math. Director Joseph L. Mankiewicz once called her the smartest child he had ever worked with, though Natalie herself often felt conflicted. She knew the crew had to wait while she wrapped up her studies each day, and she carried that guilt quietly, pushing herself to be twice as prepared once she stepped onto the set. As the cameras rolled, the workload only intensified. By the age of 8, she was working 12-hour days, 6 days a week. Childhood was slipping through her fingers, replaced by endless scripts, lights, and performance expectations. There was little time to just be a kid. Yet Natalie refused to let the pressure break her. Instead, she leaned into her craft with everything she had. Everything shifted again in 1955, when she landed the role of Judy in Rebel Without a Cause. The film captured the restless spirit of a generation, but for Natalie, it was a defining moment, one that would mark her transition from child star to serious actress. Director Nicholas Ray, however, wasn't initially convinced she could pull it off. Having played innocent characters for so long, he doubted she could portray a troubled, rebellious teen. But Natalie didn't back down. In a bold, half-joking plea that stunned Ray, she told him she'd run away and become a real delinquent if he didn't give her a chance. Her daring worked, and she won the part. What followed was one of the most intense performances of her early career. But the camera didn't catch everything. At just 16, Natalie entered into a relationship with a much older Ray. He was 43 at the time. Back then, some chalked it up to method acting or emotional immersion. But years later, Natalie would speak of it with sorrow, calling it a painful mistake. That experience left emotional bruises that never fully faded. During filming, she and Dennis Hopper were involved in a car crash, a moment that only deepened the movie's edgy reputation. But tragedy struck soon after production wrapped. James Dean was killed in a high-speed collision. The loss was devastating, casting a shadow over the film's release. When Rebel Without a Cause hit theaters, audiences were struck not just by its timing, but by Natalie's performance. Judy revealed layers of vulnerability and longing that few expected from someone so young. Her authenticity didn't go unnoticed. In 1956, Natalie earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress and won a Golden Globe for Most Promising Newcomer. Proof that Hollywood was finally seeing her not just as a child star, but as a powerful force in her own right. What great roles did she take on later in life? Keep watching to find out what comes next. Natalie Wood's fiercest roles and final curtain. With the acclaim of Rebel Without a Cause still fresh, Natalie Wood stepped into the 1960s determined to redefine herself. In 1961, she stunned audiences with Splendor in the Grass, portraying Deanie, a young woman unraveling under the weight of heartbreak and mental illness. To prepare, Natalie visited mental hospitals, studying real patients to bring truth to the role. One emotionally charged scene, in which Deanie breaks down in a bathtub, was so intense it was captured in a single take. The film's success earned her a second Oscar nomination and showed she had far more range than anyone expected. That same year, she took on the role of Maria in West Side Story, playing a Puerto Rican girl caught in a forbidden romance. Though her singing was dubbed, Natalie infused the role with warmth and sincerity. The film became a phenomenon, winning 10 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. At just 23, Natalie had proven she wasn't just a teen idol. She was a force in Hollywood. In 1963, she took a major risk with Love with the Proper Stranger, portraying a woman dealing with an unplanned pregnancy and contemplating abortion, a subject almost never touched by Hollywood at the time. One critical scene, entirely improvised, showed Natalie at her most vulnerable. It earned her a third Oscar nomination and further cemented her reputation as a fearless actress. But by 1966, she felt stifled. Tired of being typecast, she paid $175,000 to break free from her Warner Brothers contract. She even turned down popular scripts like Barefoot, In the Park, searching for roles that would challenge her. The move cost her visibility, and the emotional strain became overwhelming. That same year, she attempted suicide. Surviving the incident, she took a break, fired her team, and focused on her mental health. A painful but necessary reset. Her return came in 1969 with Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, a provocative film about modern relationships. It became a surprise hit, grossing nearly $32 million on a $2 million budget. In the 1970s, Natalie shifted to television, wanting more time with her family. Her 1973 TV film The Affair drew around 30 million viewers, proving she could still captivate on the small screen. In 1976, she starred in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, bringing new life to Maggie. And in 1979, she finally won a Golden Globe for her role in the hit miniseries From Here to Eternity. Natalie remarried Robert Wagner in 1972 and chose to work less, appearing in only a few films throughout the decade. In 1981, she began filming Brainstorm, a sci-fi movie exploring technology that could capture human thought. But on November 29, 1981, Natalie tragically died before the film was completed. With most of her scenes done, the production used body doubles and editing magic to finish it. Released in 1983, Brainstorm didn't break records, but it became a beloved cult film and a haunting farewell from one of Hollywood's most unforgettable stars. Love, loss, and the return to Robert. But behind the scenes of Brainstorm, Natalie's life had already taken a turn shaped by love, betrayal, and an unlikely second chance. Her relationship with Robert Wagner had begun like something out of a fairy tale. As a little girl, Natalie once whispered to her mother that she would marry him someday. That dream came true when she turned 18 and the pair began dating, eventually tying the knot on December 28, 1957, in a picturesque ceremony in Scottsdale, Arizona. Hollywood adored them, the rising starlet and the handsome actor, but fame cast long shadows. As Natalie's career soared, Robert stalled and tension quietly settled into their marriage. By 1961, their connection was unraveling. Some whispered that Natalie had caught Robert in a compromising moment with another man at their home, an allegation that, if true, would have sent shockwaves through the industry. Whether fact or rumor, something broke between them. They separated in June 1961, and by April of the following year, their divorce was finalized. Natalie then found herself in a turbulent relationship with Warren Beatty. While the world saw them as a glamorous pair, the reality was anything but. Their time together was marked by intense fights and emotional exhaustion. Meanwhile, Robert left the city, escaping to Europe to cope with the heartbreak. A few years later, Natalie sought stability with British producer Richard Gregson, whom she met through Robert Redford. Their romance unfolded slowly over 3 years before culminating in a Russian Orthodox wedding on May 30th, 1969. Life with Richard initially offered calm, especially after the birth of their daughter Natasha in September 1970. But the peace didn't last. As Natalie immersed herself in motherhood, Richard drifted. That emotional gap widened until it broke, when Natalie discovered he'd had an affair with her secretary. Devastated, she expelled him from their home and filed for divorce in August 1971. By early 1972, fate intervened once again. Both Natalie and Robert were single, older, and perhaps wiser. A meeting that January sparked something familiar, something unfinished. Though friends urged caution, Natalie believed they had finally grown into the people they were always meant to be. Just 6 months later, on July 16, 1972, they married again, this time aboard a yacht anchored off Malibu. Surrounded by the sea, it felt deeply personal, like a vow whispered just for them. 2 years later, they welcomed their daughter, Courtney, and Robert lovingly embraced Natasha as his own. For a while, it truly seemed they had rewritten their ending. Still, one question hung in the air. Could this second chance defy the weight of their past? What unfolded next would test everything they believed they had rebuilt. A night that never made sense. But what seemed like a long overdue second chance between Natalie and Robert would come to a heartbreaking and deeply mysterious end just a few years later. On November 27, 1981, Natalie boarded the yacht Splendor with Robert Wagner, her Brainstorm co-star Christopher Walken, and the boat's captain, Dennis Davern. Their weekend trip to Catalina Island was meant to be a peaceful getaway. Originally, more guests were expected, but in the end, it was just the four of them. That Friday, they left Marina del Rey and arrived at Avalon, spending the day shopping and sipping drinks while Dennis stayed behind on the yacht. By all appearances, it was a normal day, until it wasn't. The following evening, due to worsening weather, Robert moved the yacht to a more secluded area called Two Harbors. Wind howled, rain pelted the decks, and the ocean grew restless. That night, they went ashore to the island's only restaurant, Doug's Harbor Reef, where they arrived at 5 p.m. and stayed for hours. Witnesses later described the group as heavily intoxicated, especially by the time they left around 10:30 p.m. Not long after, a heated argument reportedly broke out back on the yacht. According to those nearby, Wagner was heard shouting, "Get off my boat!" before silence fell. At around midnight, Marilyn Wayne, on a neighboring boat, was startled by the sound of a woman's voice calling out repeatedly, "Help me! Someone please help me! I'm drowning!" The cries lasted for about 15 minutes and then faded into the night. Natalie, known for her deep fear of dark water, had spoken openly about never wanting to be near the ocean at night, let alone swim in it. The idea that she would have left the yacht alone in those conditions seemed impossible to those who knew her. It wasn't until 3:30 a.m. that the Coast Guard was alerted, and her body wasn't found until nearly 6 a.m. The delay in raising the alarm stirred suspicion. An autopsy revealed a blood alcohol level of 0.14% and the presence of painkillers and motion sickness medication. There were also bruises that hinted at a possible struggle before she entered the water. New witnesses, including Marilyn and her partner, reported hearing a man's slurred voice respond, "Okay, honey," during the cries for help. Marilyn later claimed Natalie had once confided in her that Robert might kill her. The quiet tension in their marriage, long buried beneath red carpet, smiles, suddenly couldn't be ignored. Contradictions in Robert Wagner's statements.
Last week, we reported the bombshell news that Robert Wagner has been named a person of interest in the death of his wife, legendary actress Natalie Wood.
The unsettling contradictions in Robert Wagner's account began to cast even longer shadows when, in August 2012, the Los Angeles County coroner amended Natalie Wood's death certificate. What had long been ruled an accidental drowning was reclassified as drowning and other undetermined factors, suggesting that what happened aboard the Splendor was far more complex than anyone first believed. Around the same time, Wagner's narrative began to change. He now admitted there had been a heated argument that night, not just between him and Natalie, but also with Christopher Walken, centering on Natalie's career. He confessed to smashing a wine bottle during the dispute, a violent detail missing from his earlier version of events. These new admissions closely mirrored what Dennis Davern, the yacht's captain, had been claiming for years. The atmosphere on board wasn't calm, but chaotic. The shift in Wagner's story only fueled public suspicion, and as investigators revisited the case, they encountered a pattern of evasion. Wagner refused to sit down for formal interviews with law enforcement, prompting Lieutenant John Corina to publicly question the credibility of his statements. "I haven't seen him tell the details that match all the other witnesses," Corina said in 2018, the same year Wagner was officially named a person of interest.
Investigators turned up the heat today on actor Robert Wagner and the mysterious death of his wife, Natalie Wood.
While Walken remained mostly silent over the years, he finally spoke out in a rare 2012 Playboy interview. He claimed Natalie had retired to bed early and may have gone out later to secure a loose dinghy, hinting she might have fallen by accident. But even he admitted only she truly knew what happened that night. Then, in 2021, another dark thread emerged from Natalie's past, one that had haunted her long before the night she vanished. Her sister, Lana Wood, released a memoir revealing that in 1955, when Natalie was just 16, their mother had arranged a meeting between Natalie and actor Kirk Douglas, hoping his fame could help her daughter's career. But when Natalie returned, disheveled and shaken, she whispered to her mother in a trembling voice. Years later, Natalie confided in Lana, revealing what had happened behind that closed door. "He hurt me, Lana." Those 4 words shattered the silence, exposing a wound she had buried beneath decades of glamour, fame, and fear. But what do you think? Was Natalie Wood's death truly accidental? Or do these jolting revelations point to a darker mystery? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.